Michelle Mandala, VP of Strategy and Brand for Landis & Gear. And Landis & Gear, if those of you who don't know, is a company focused on the utilities and smart grid space, based here with an office here in Atlanta, where Michelle is. So in her role in strategy and brand, she's involved in really setting the direction in this emerging space and presenting the brand of the company into the market. Doing that through a lot of engagement through industry events. We were talking earlier about Distributech in the next week or so. Some of you may be there. But Michelle doesn't just bring that utility smart grid focus. She has, I think it's 18 years at least, although it's hard to imagine somebody could be so young and have so much experience. Trying to soften her up so she won't feel the hard blows from you all when you ask the tough questions. So with that 18 years of experience in the wireless business, actually I'm glad to say part of those years were here at AT&T, where Michelle and I did work together in the device handheld business, but also at Motorola. Michelle's got a lot of experience there. So I'm thinking that, Michelle, you'll be a lot of help to us in some of the M2M emerging markets around the utility space, but also user experience and handheld work in the past. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Good. I'll now introduce Mark, sitting next to Glenn. Mark Shelf is the Vice President of Industry Solutions at Motorola Solutions, a new part of Motorola. Motorola recently split their business into two. There's the mobility business focused on handhelds, and there's the Mobility Solutions Group that is focused on enterprise equipment solutions, software applications. So Mark is a highly experienced leader of teams who are delivering these solutions to their carrier partners as well as to the enterprises who use those solutions. So very familiar with the implementation and the design and development of applications and getting them into industry settings. He also had many years from IBM, brings a lot of sales, marketing experience from that background. Moving right along to Ziad Shabair. Ziad is the Director of Solutions Engineering at Jasper Wireless. And in that role, Ziad is working to help take the Jasper Wireless platform. Some of you may know it as AT&T Control Center, I'm glad to say. But what that platform does, and what Ziad brings to this discussion, is it's not just about endpoints, it's not just about devices, it's also about the service delivery platforms that sit between the networks and the devices. So Ziad's team works with carriers to get that kind of solution deployed globally. He comes also with many years of experience from RIM, so knows the enterprise and handheld device space there, as well as an IT consulting background. So we're delighted to have you, Ziad.
Thank you.
Mike Scarborough is the Chief Executive Officer of Discrete Wireless. In that role, of course, as a CEO, Mike is really setting the strategy, setting the vision for really a company that's involved in a highly innovative space. We've heard a lot about the end user experiences from Glenn. We're getting a sense of the platforms and the networks. Well, Discrete Wireless have a mobile resource management solution. So all of this end-to-end solution needs to be managed, and the assets and endpoints need to be managed, and that takes smart software. So that's what Mike's team do at Discrete. He has had previous executive roles in various chief operator roles, etc., and at various companies in the asset management business. So thank you all very much for your time. And the way we're going to work this is I will get the ball rolling maybe with a few questions. I did happen to prepare a few in advance. But then I want you to all be thinking what questions you want to ask. So hopefully I can tell Glenn's presentation helped spark your imaginations. So we'll do this for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll open up to the floor. So please do be thinking about some of those questions. So, Glenn, you did give us a nice picture, all those little devices around that pinwheel. But maybe we'll start at the other end. And what I'm interested to hear is what device, either that was on the pinwheel or wasn't on the pinwheel, do you each think is really going to be the thing you're going to watch over the next couple of years that you think might take off? And why is 2011 the time for that start? So start with you, Mike.
What we've seen in our space is that people want to know where things are. That's what our application is primarily about. We focus on vehicles, but people are, as Glenn mentioned earlier, people are trying to keep track of things. It doesn't matter whether it's their child or their asset, like we deal with. So the various ways that people keep track of that, whether it's using the tracking systems like ours that involve a mobile device in a vehicle, or tags and other things that people are tying to things that are then connected to other devices that are wirelessly transmitting the location, so that if you see vehicles come into a terminal and they pass by something and then that's transmitted out saying, I'm here. So that we can push that back through supply chain and other types of applications. So anything knowing where things are and keeping track of that and then integrating that into other applications, I think it's going to continue to be a growth space.
Great, that's interesting. It's not just the points on the wheel, it's the spokes of the wheel.
That's right.
Okay, great, thanks. Ziad?
Yeah, it's interesting when people think of mobile devices, they think about smartphones and PDAs, but you have a huge number of devices that people don't think of, purpose-built devices, and that industry is growing, and very soon it's going to have a big change to the way we do business. One device in the near future I look at is actually tracking, not just vehicle tracking, but also human and pet tracking, which has become very important for people.
Good.
Why now? Because the ecosystem is getting all together. Operators like AT&T have a good sales team with proper business model to help companies to build those systems. And the price of the connection for the module is becoming cheaper and easier to build.
Good, thank you. Michelle?
So I would be remiss if I didn't mention smart metering and smart grid, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that there was a meter up there on that wheel. Thank you, I appreciate that. But more than just the asset that's attached to the outside of your home, smart grid is really about connected devices. So I look at what happened at CES this year, where there were more smart grid enabled products that were shown at large CE manufacturers than there were many other devices out there. It says to me that embedded wireless communications in products that consumers buy, like white goods, as well, that will speak to smart meters, that will speak to other connected devices in the home, is a growing and emerging space. Why now? I think it has a lot to do with economics. It has a lot to do with concerns either about green, clean, or low-cost energy. And I think that's going to be a continued focus, sustainability and green, clean, and cheap.
Great, good comments, thank you. Mark?
So I think the why now question is best pointed out by companies in general are getting a lot more adept at operationalizing all of this technology, all this wireless infrastructure, whether it's a smart grid or RFID. As AT&T builds out its network and develops more bandwidth and capability to send more and more down, whether you call it the pipe or the solution, then companies are getting a lot crisper about how to operationalize all this stuff. So rather than focus on a specific device, we were worried about the smartphone business because we have many horses in that race. Motorola makes stuff that you could use as a murder weapon because drop it from 8 feet to concrete and it still works. And we first saw that as a threat. Now I'm seeing it more as an opportunity. I think that the future is really going to be, perhaps to your point, Glenn, there's going to be more devices as opposed to somebody's going to gravitate to a iPad or not, or a laptop or a netbook or whatever. There's going to be more different iterations perhaps of task-specific devices for different business problems. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Thank you.
Can I answer it too?
No, actually I was going to point out, Glenn, that you already have some poster child examples that you had on the wheel. Yeah. But is there others not on there that are kind of the oddballs that you're thinking might emerge onto next year's version of that chart?
Well, there's lots of oddballs. What I'd say is this, and I think it goes to what we've all said. Let me take it a step. It's about the customer experience. So when you think about all those devices and you hear me say, well, gosh, I hope all of you have 10, 12 devices, the first thing people do is get nervous, because that's hard to manage, and it's technology, it scares people. So I think where Michelle is going is where I think the exciting part is where does it all come together? So first of all, it's the experience. It's got to be simple. It's got to be easy for people to use. It's got to be easy to bring all those devices together and actually manage those devices. I think that happens in multiple places. I think the key place is your home. I think that's where it kind of comes together to a hub. But once you've hubbed it in your home, then you can obviously use any other device to connect to that hub. It allows you to use an app on your iPhone or an app on your Brim or an app on your iPad or whatever you like to use that allows you to now see where all those devices are, whether you're tracking your kid or tracking your car, or want to know what the energy that's being used in your home. So one of the things we have to do as an industry is make this simple and give customers great customer experiences for all the devices they have.
Did you? Yeah,
Actually, one of the things that Glenn mentioned that I thought was really interesting was the fact that you don't even need to know. And I think that's another enabling aspect of embedded wireless, not needing to know. In the world of connected home, envision an environment where your smart meter sends rates wirelessly to your connected washing machine or dryer. That washing machine or dryer uses its intelligence to understand that energy is more expensive right now. And instead of just turning off and letting your clothes sit there and get all wrinkly, it'll keep the rotator going, but turn the heat off so that it doesn't consume as much energy. Those are ways that we can create that connected environment. One, get lots of wireless device penetration, lots of data pipe penetration and data pipe revenues, but do so in a way that satisfies a consumer unmet need. They don't even know it's happening, and it's a seamless experience.
Great, good. Well, thanks. Let me, Bob mentioned at the beginning, we're going to mix it up a little bit, not just be about connected devices. So let me expand our thoughts a little bit here and bring us into thinking a bit about the smartphones, the embedded computing, and what the world I'm seeing, and that Glenn showed us, all those different devices, lots of different operating systems. I see iOS, I see Android, I see RIM and QNX acquisition coming out there. So an increasing fragmentation and distribution and diversity of operating platforms that these different shapes of plastic and shapes of glass are using. So, boy, it seems to be getting even more complicated, and it's certainly not standing still. I'm wondering how each of you thinks that landscape is going to shake out and look in the next couple of years. Is there going to be as many of them as we're seeing today, or is it going to, the market going to consolidate around just a few? So I'll just open it up. Who would like to go first?
I'll take that one, given that it just came from RIM. Yeah, from my previous experience, I would say let them win and dominate the market. But one thing I look at is I don't see one OS being in the market. And from history, we look at the PC computing. We never had a single OS that dominates. We had Windows, we had iOS, we had Unix, and different variations of it. So what I think is the same is going to happen with the handheld. We're going to have a few companies that have proprietary OSs, some open OSs, and then they're going to consolidate into a larger population for a single OS. My opinion is going to be more the Android, because Google have a very nice business model that makes it very easy to implement and support.
Let me just build on the question a little bit for the rest to respond to. So is it not about technology, OSs? It's about business models, and which OS implements a business model, and Glenn's shaking his head. So we love conflict and excitement on the panel, so go for it, Glenn.
Well, we're partners. I'm not going to, no. I'll say this. I mean, first of all, let's just make sure we're clear. The customer will choose who wins, not us. Okay, customers vote with their wallets. They'll make that decision. That's first. Second of all, the OS that wins is the OS that has the full ecosystem, right? Today, Apple dominates that. You know, whether you like it or not, Steve's done a phenomenal job at having content, putting everything around his content. He builds devices that can utilize all the content. I remember when we were at the launch of iPad, he got drilled by the analysts because it wasn't revolutionary, and what the analysts missed was that's the whole point. The point was he wanted a 10-inch screen. You could use all the things you've ever bought and would work perfectly on that so that the ecosystem worked. Okay, Android, to the point, is probably the next one that's trying to build that. If you look at what Andy Rubin's talking about and trying to bring all those apps, but the OSs that will win will have the ecosystem that drives that. Now, do I think it's going to be one or two? I don't. I always think there's going to be people coming in trying to play that game, whether it's you know, WebOS, whether it's MeeGo, and we can debate whether any of these. Bottom line is that customers will vote. And the ones that bring a full ecosystem, the full devices, a great customer experience, will win.
Okay. Anybody else want to pick up on that one?
I'll color that a little bit more. I think that to Glenn's point, the business model works, and I think that the marketplace will continue to support a fragmented. I don't think there's going to be another Microsoft, in other words, in mobile. I think it'll continue to be fragmented. Who knows what's going to happen 2, 3, 4 years from now? I'm glad that I'm not in that business. I mean, you mentioned the razor somewhat disparagingly, but it was a good product at that time. And before, I'll forgive you for that. But before that, I mean, we were all singing the praises of Nokia, right? And now look at what's happened with Nokia. So it seems to be kind of a fashion-intensive business. I do agree with you that the ecosystem is going to win out, but I also think that the business model, Android is somewhat of a free operating system. I think that there's going to be a threat on the horizon to Apple's businesses, whether or not they can compete with free and that customer experience. So my answer is going to continue to be fragmented. There's not going to be a clear, no one's going to end up with 40, 50, 60% of the market, in my view.
Great, good.
Just want to add to this. When I met about this model for Google is the fact that they're allowing customers to have applications for free more than any other system. And these days, customers don't like to pay for software anymore for some reason. So having the advertising model where people can get the application for free and work with it is becoming very appealing for customers.
Yeah, I would add to that. What we see in this space, in the mobile space, is the very wide variety of products. I mean, it's not kind of simple or relatively straightforward form factors like laptops and PCs. We're seeing all kinds of devices with all kinds of capabilities, and that sort of lends itself to people building optimized operating systems and other things that fit certain markets. And that sort of necessitates a little bit of fragmentation. Within these sub-markets, I think you'll see winners and losers. But across the whole ecosystem, it makes sense that you would see a variety. And I think we'll continue to see that because this is such a dynamic space. We have devices that do relatively straightforward and very kind of modest things, just sending one little packet every now and then, to things that are doing very complicated things. And that variety of both data usage and CPU usage and constraints in terms of cost, price to the end customer, lends itself to people optimizing around those different things. And I think that will lead itself to a very robust ecosystem of people finding their individual niches.
Great, and I want to pick up on that theme a little bit because I'm seeing in the market the handheld evolution. Incredible technology. It's just fantastic. Great screens, dual-core processors, gigabytes of memory. It's impressive, these mobile computers in your hand. But if we come back a little bit to think of the machine-to-machine connected device world, are we going to see such dramatic technology in the physical equipment? Smart meters, do they need dual-core processors, Michelle? Or what are the kind of technology hardware evolutions we should all be looking for in the connected device world?
So since you said my name, I'll start.
Start in the middle. There we go.
I do think there are going to be technology advances. And I think that every industry is somewhat subject to the speeds and feeds race. So there's going to be some of that very naturally as people expect a little bit more and expect companies to be moving along an experience curve. So naturally, we're going to see some of that. Will that continue to expand? I actually think it will, particularly when you think about creating a peer-to-peer communications between devices. How do I create an environment on a connected home device that would allow a market innovator to create applications to allow these devices to talk to each other, to allow things, and I'll come back to pricing since it's a very a critical issue in the energy market today, pricing signals and price communications. But how do I create those innovative applications and put them on edge devices in the network? You will need to have a more sophisticated processing device. You will need to have an OS, which is something new for the energy space. So I think those kinds of advances are coming. Equally important when it comes to that, when it comes to advances in some embedded industries, in particular in smart grid, is hardware reliability. So it isn't just going to be, can I put the latest whiz-bang doodad out there on the grid? It's, can I do that and will it have a 20-year asset life? Will it be reliable? Can I guarantee that it's going to work when the power goes out? So there are other factors in embedded connected solutions evolution that you need to consider as you think about expanding from a consumer product market that has a life cycle of 12, 18 months, I don't know what it is these days, to a world where I put something on the power line and it's got to sit up there for 10, 20 years.
Anybody else like to pick up on this?
Yeah, I agree with Michelle. I mean, a lot of the issues where we see innovation are in things that you wouldn't, in the consumer space, you wouldn't see. Power management is an example. I mean, when we're trying to track things for long periods of time that don't have a connected power source, getting it really small, those are critical to really expanding these markets. So having small things that have power and still can throw a signal out, pretty far. Those are things we're still all working on from a technology standpoint that aren't the things that you typically see like screens.
All I'd add is I think there's two. I think you hit one very well. We need better batteries, period. Right? I got asked recently, I was on a panel at CES, and they said, when's the next big paradigm in batteries? I have no idea. I didn't even try to make it up. I usually do, but we don't know. But batteries is huge. Size and how long they can last and all is a massive part of what we worry about every day. Second one, and there's some folks in the room that will love I say this, but module cost is massive. Right? When we're building a tracking device, you want to get as cheap as possible. You want to get it in people's hands. There's going to be a tipping point on the module cost that allows you to put it in everything. If anybody, some of you in here are too young, but some of you here aren't, right? Remember we used to pay $70 for a Wi-Fi module. $70. Remember you have to add it to your PC. It was $70 when they came out. What is it now? It's $2, $2.50, $3, right? That's why, hey, let's throw that in. I don't care about that. It's not, right? That's where we've got to get, right, for us to have the tipping point where this is in everything, right, which makes our lives a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a great point about battery because there's a competing challenge as the demand on the battery is increasing as the OS is loaded in the application, etc. So,
just very quickly, I think one thing that gets lost in the conversation, you move to this, everything's got an IP address world, right? Is that and all that's driving all this data, but the business intelligence tools, the databases, the analytics, someone wants to make a lot of money, work on the mundane things of how do you synchronize data between my phone and what's actually in the retail store. That stuff isn't nearly as sexy as the marketplace ecosystem or the connectivity speeds and whatnot, but I think that has a bit of catching up to do as we move to this brave new world of everything as a device.
Great, good. I'm going to open up to the floor now. And Bob, do we have a microphone around the room? So, and here's a gentleman right here. I'll give this mic to.